Hey guys, it's Alexandra. Today I'm going to be talking with Kay, who is going to be sharing her experiences getting ghosted. We're going to be talking about ghosting, why people ghost, how it can affect the way that we see relationships, social media, and how it creates this culture of people being disposable to one another. I think a lot of people have been ghosted and they don't talk about it as openly as she does. So I think her stories are really relatable. Hopefully, you'll be able to connect to her and learn something new. I hope that you will stay tuned to check her out and subscribe for more videos. All right, thank you.
What is the worst way you've ever been ghosted?
I have got this one. Okay. So I met a guy on Hinge. We started dating. We became exclusive. He asked me to be his girlfriend. We started throwing around L words. Like, it was what a successful match should be, right? So at this point, we had been together for 5 months. I'd met some of his friends. We'd had an amazing Valentine's Day. Like, it was nice. It was really, really nice. So he was going to be meeting some of my friends at my birthday. This was pre-COVID, so I'd arranged a little shindig, whatever. And so 2 days before, he's like, okay, what do you want me to do? Shall I meet you there, or do you want me to come with you? And I was like, you're cool, like, whatever you want to do. He said, okay, I'll meet you there. So I was like, okay, great. So I went. All of my friends were there. They were all excited to meet this guy. And basically, he didn't turn up. He didn't turn up to my birthday. All of my friends were like, where's the dude? And I'm like, I don't know, man. And never heard from him again. So I walked straight up to him and I was like, hi, remember me? He was horrified, horrified. But you know what? I got to say everything I wanted to say. Told him he was a dick, told him how he made me feel and how he made me look a prick in front of my friends. And you know what he said? He looked me square in the eye and he said, are you done? I was like, oh, bitch, I'm done. I'm done.
I thought it was really interesting that you share your story about being ghosted. I feel like
Yeah.
that's like a pretty normal thing for women, and they don't say it. They'll just kind of push it away, but they're
Yeah.
embarrassed to talk about it.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm really glad that you shared your story, and it seemed like you got a lot of people like reacting to that. So that's awesome too.
I mean, I'm surprised that, like, I know we've all had a ghosting story, So, I mean, it popped up and I thought, oh, I've got a really good story here. Funnily enough, I have many stories which are maybe not similar, but I have a lot of ghosting stories. So I was like, okay, I got this one. And I didn't expect it to go where it went.
Yeah.
So, and then when everyone started sharing their stories, I was like, this is. And I thought my story was pretty bad. But then when I was reading the comments, and there was so many comments of people being ghosted after 2 years, people being engaged, being ghosted, there was one woman and she said that she was about to take her cat to the vet. She was living with this guy and she took her cat to the vet to have the cat put down, and she got back and the guy was gone. Like, I just thought it blows my mind. It blows my mind. Like, just reading people's stories, I think it hit a chord with a lot of people. So, and I'm glad that people were able to share their stories with me. I think that was probably the best thing that came out of that. And then somebody said, well, actually, I'd quite like to hear from the ghosters. And I'm like, yes, I want to as well. And then this created this whole other thing where people were just saying, yeah, I've done it and this is the reasons why. And actually it really made sense as to why a lot of people do ghost. Because for me, it's I guess I'm old school, so I just think it's always important to be respectful no matter how long you've known them or whatever. But it's just not that culture anymore.
Yeah.
It just isn't. People are just so disposable now. And when you're new in the world of dating, I was in a relationship for 10 years, and going into that relationship, dating was completely different. No one dated on the internet, from 10 years ago. Well, I guess now 14 years ago. So then coming back out of a relationship and then going back into the dating world, I'm like, this is a completely new place. Like, I need to learn all the rules again. And and I need to figure out because for me, I'm just like, well, okay, this is how it always is. But I think the internet has done not the best things, and internet dating, the way people date, it blows my mind now to think that people date on the internet as a norm, which is, when I was last dating, that was almost like a last resort. you know, you didn't date that way back then. So who knew? Eh?
Right.
And, you know, I guess I learned the hard way, like everyone does, where you just expect everyone to just be the same as you. And when you realize that actually people don't really care about each other, you know, they don't care. They care about more about themselves, unfortunately, than they do about each other. So, yeah, so I learned the hard way, and it is what it is, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, but
So,
again, there's a lot of, you know, when I think about, you know, I guess based on all of these horror stories that people have when it comes to dating, you know, it then it has a snowball effect on the way that people go into their next relationships, and how, you know, little trust they have for each other. Actually, really is a shame, you know. What can you do? What can you do? You just have to muddle your way through it and hope for the best, you know.
yeah.
That's pretty much all you can do.
So what are some of your personal experiences with being ghosted?
Oh, I mean, down from the simplest things, like you've organized a date with someone and then you don't hear from them that day, and then you pretty much know you're not going to see them that day, and then that's that, you know. Or you know, you have a couple of dates with someone and you're the one who, you realize that you're the one who's always initiating conversation, and then you think, okay, I'm going to pull back a little because I'm initiating all of this conversation, and then they just disappear. Down to the worst stories. I mean, one of the worst ones was I'd been on, I think, 4 dates with this guy, really lovely guy. I mean, you know, really, really nice guy. And he was coming back to my place. It was during the day. He was coming to my place, and I was going to cook some food. So, and it was because we were going to go for a walk. This is, you know, just as we were sort of coming in and out of lockdown. So this was when we came out of lockdown, and for a brief time. And so he was like, okay, you know, I said, why don't you come back to my place and we'll just have some food and we'll watch a movie? And he's like, okay, that's great. So we went to the supermarket and he held my basket, and, you know, he paid for the food and everything. And so we got back and we started watching a movie, and he got a phone call from one of his friends, and he's like, oh my God, my friend is in a lot of trouble. You know, he literally is 10 minutes down the road. Do you mind if I just go and make sure he's all right? And I was like, of course, you know, go do your thing. And he said, I'll be back in like an hour. I'm like, okay, great. Just call me when you're on your way back, and then I'll start cooking. So he never came back. I never heard from him again. You know, and I was texting him saying, you know, when are you going to be back? Like, I'm going to put the food on, and just never heard from him again. And, you know, I think the worst part of that is that there was no signs that he was not interested. And I think that's the worst part of, you know, being ghosted, is that they show no signs of, you know, and I'm not stupid. I'm old enough to understand people's body language and the way that they interact and things like that. But when they literally are the opposite of what they do, you know, you sort of go, well, if someone can do that after 4 dates, I mean, even with the ghosting story that went mad on TikTok, he was my boyfriend, you know. He was the one who said, I'm not really one for labels. So I was like, look, you know, we're dating, we're good, we're doing all the things that 2 people should do. And he was like, well, I want us to be exclusive. So I'm like, okay, you know, let's be exclusive. And he was the one who initiated every step. So, you know, I said, you know, I don't know how this works, because I was quite new to the dating scene after being with someone for 10 years. And I was like, I don't really know. I remember the conversation. I said, but I don't really know how it works. Like, do you have to say, oh, you're my boyfriend now? Like, I don't even care about the phrase boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. And he's like, well, I don't know about you, but I want to call you my girlfriend. You know, will you be my girlfriend? So it was like, he initiated all of these things. And, you know, even when he first told me that he loved me, I was like, oh my God, like, this is, and it wasn't, I didn't initiate any of it, you know. And his behavior was very much that we were exclusive, we were in a relationship, he was my boyfriend, you know, all of those things. he's like, you know, I'm meeting some of my friends at Christmas. Would you like to join us? And I was like, okay, well, this is then the next step. And, you know, we went to Christmas things together, and he did this big elaborate thing for Valentine's Day where he took my keys from my flat and decorated my whole flat, and, you know, all like really beautiful, wonderful things. And then so that was in February, and then April, and we were just fine and for 5 months, and then I never saw him again. Like, he was due to come to my birthday, and he's like, and I said, how do you feel about, you know, we talked about it all, and I'm very big when it comes to communication. So I said, how do you feel about it? Are you good with, you know, that amount of people? Like, are you good meeting my friends? And he's like, yeah, I'm really excited. You know, I can't. And I think also he knows that when it comes to guys, you have to be worthy to meet my friends, and you have to be worthy to go to my favorite restaurants and things like that, you know. And I mean, I could sit here and wonder for months and months as to what it could be, but I'll just never know. So, you know, and then it came to the time where he was going to meet me there at my birthday, and he just never showed, and I never heard from him again, you know. So I think when it comes to someone that you open your heart to and you become more vulnerable to, and then they can still do that to you, you know, it leaves a lot of hurt, but also it leaves a lot of lasting issues, you know, in terms of, well, if someone can do that after one day, okay, that's on them. But if someone can do that after 5 months of calling you their girlfriend and telling you that they love you, and, you know, all of these things, and it's like, well, what hope do we have in any relationship, you know? And I think one of the biggest things that's come out of that is that I mean, I've been dating a little bit after that. I mean, I came off social media and dating apps and everything after that, and it took me a long time to sort of get over that. But I had to realize that, you know, this wasn't about me. I was the person that I am, and if that wasn't good enough for him, then that's not on me, you know. I think if I was a rubbish girlfriend, then fair enough, but I always think I should give the best of myself to whoever it is. And so I had to just put it down to the fact that it's not on me. It's not on me. But again, you know, if you're opening up to another person, you sort of think, well, if he can do that after 5 months, you can do that after 5 months. And these are the problems that you have later on, which will, you know, as much as you deal with them and as much as you heal from them, they're always going to be there. They're always going to be in the back of your mind, you know. Like, again, with the stories at TikTok, like, people were telling me that a man had asked this girl to marry him, and the next day he disappeared. He had gone. And I just think, well, when do you feel secure? At what point do you feel secure in that relationship that person's not going to leave, you know?
Yeah.
And there is no guarantees, I guess. And I think that's the hardest bit that comes out of, you know. And now I'm at the stage where if I'm going to date someone, I'm like, you do what you need to do, you know. But on the back of that, you don't want to be like nonchalant, because that's not their fault, and that's not their trauma, and that's not how, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword, I guess, when it comes to things like that.
Were you able to ever get any answers as to, like, I know you proposed the question, why, if you've ghosted, why have you ghosted, and how have you done it? Were you able to get any answers about that?
Yeah, so I bumped into him. I mean, I tried afterwards, you know, and when I realized that it's not like he wasn't answering his phone. It's not like he wasn't reading his messages. He wasn't listening to the voice notes, because he was. So I could see that he was reading everything. So I knew that nothing had happened to him, you know. And if they had, then I would have thought, okay, well, you should have told me, you know, this is on you to tell me that things are not okay, you know. And I even sent him messages, like, they were angry messages, obviously, but it was also messages like, you know, you can talk to me if there's something going on with you, then it's okay to tell me. It's okay. And even if you don't want to tell me what's going on, it's okay for you to say, listen, I've got something going on. Just leave, you know, I just need some space. Like, that's fine, you know. But I think, yeah, so anyway, he disappeared, and I knew that that was that. And so 6 months later, I bumped into him at major train station near where I live. I was coming home from work, and I saw him walking towards me, and he didn't see me at first. And my initial thought was, I'm not going to speak to him, because I don't, you have all these things that go through your head at 100 miles an hour. So I thought, I'm not gonna say anything to him, because he doesn't deserve my time and my efforts and my anger and all of those things. But then I thought, you know what? If you don't take this opportunity now, you're never gonna get it again, So I walked up to him, and he looked at me, and just the horror on his face, is like, in terms of seeing me again. And I thought, right, how are you going to play this out? Just be cool, just be like, hi, do you remember me? And he was like, what do you want? That was his first thing, was, what do you want? And I was like, well, I want to give you an opportunity to explain to me why you wanted all of these things. I'm not saying that I didn't want them, but you initiated all of these things, and then you just disappeared. Like, didn't you even owe me an explanation? Didn't you even owe me even if it was a text message to say, listen, I don't think this is going to work out. Didn't you owe me that? And he just had nothing to say. He didn't know what to say. He was, and I said, are you sure you don't want to say anything right now? Like, do you not owe me that? And he didn't say anything. So I was like, right, okay, well, if you're not going to tell me anything, then I'm going to tell you all of the things that I want to say. And, I was like, you were awful the way that you did that. You never thought once about how it was going to make me feel, and how, the extent of what that was going to look like. And I hated you at that moment, and I was really upset, and all of those things, which you just think, okay, this is the time now, because I'm never going to get it again. And he just, I don't know if he cared or not, but at that time I just needed to say it. So I was like, I don't care what you have to think about it, but I need to tell you this, So I said everything I needed to say, and then he basically just looked at me and said, "Are you done? Are you done?" And I just thought, part of me wanted to do some really mean, really bad things, and I wanted to get angry. And I thought, you don't even deserve being angry at you, And I said, you know what? Yeah, I'm done with this. So go have a nice life, and I hope you heal from whatever it is that you're dealing with, and I wish you well, And he walked away, and that was that. So I never really got the closure, so to speak. I have a whole different thing about closure, but I never really got that. But at least I got to say everything I wanted to say, and that made me feel better, I guess, to some degree. And also knowing that he definitely was okay, like he wasn't dead, and that I wasn't imagining it all, And so then when it came after that, I just thought, right, well, when it comes to closure, like, how am I going to deal with this? Because I didn't really get it. And then I think I realized that actually closure doesn't come from the other person. It has to come from you. Like, in any situation, whether it's ghosting, whether it's anything else, you have to put that to bed yourself, and and lock it away, deal with it, but then lock it away. And then, that, and for me, that was the best way for me to really deal with it. So so when it comes to closure, it's got nothing to do with the other person. Like, that's the one big learn I've got from all of that. Yeah. The funny thing is, I hadn't really thought about him very much until I did this video, and then because it had gone crazy, it really made me think about things again. And actually, obviously you think about hindsight a lot, and I did everything I could do. And I think going forward, in every part of my life, but going forward, I think, as long as you give your best, as long as you are able to give your best self to somebody, and they still do that, then you have nothing to feel upset or annoyed about, or you don't have to look at yourself and think, was it something that I did? And I think that's probably my saving grace. That's what makes me okay to sleep at night, is knowing that in whether it's a friendship or whether it's a relationship or whatever, I'll always give my best self to someone.
and what they do with that is it's on them. It's on them. You can't, you know. So when it comes to things like ghosting, again, there was a lot of comments about how people had ghosted their friends and had been ghosted by their friendship circles and things like that, and which, you know, I couldn't even imagine going through that. But again, I think the same rules apply. Really, is if you can give your best self and you can be the best person you can be for them, then you can hold your head high and think, you know, I did everything I could, and if that wasn't enough for you for whatever those reasons are, then that's not my fault, you know. Yeah, it's and that's been the biggest learn. Definitely the biggest learn is that every day you wake up is a different opportunity, and also it's just understanding that people do have their own things going on, and we're not, you know, not everyone is like you. And even if you've got your shit together, I don't know if I could say, don't know if you've got your shit together, then you're good. Yeah. You can't control what everyone does. You can only control what you do and how you feel and how you deal with things, you know. But also going into dating again after that and being this, you know, because you owe it to that person to level up. You owe it to yourself to level up every time something happens to you. So when you go into a different situation, you have your eyes open completely. But also, I think the beauty, I don't know if you can really call it that, but the beauty of being ghosted is that you can then see the red flags very clearly, and you can almost look out for them. So you don't get yourself into a situation where I ignored that and I didn't realize that and I didn't see that. I think your eyes are much more open. You know, if there's anything good that can come out of being ghosted, it's definitely those things.
Yeah. And do you think, I think one thing interesting that you brought up a little bit ago is that, especially like in the age of social media, people don't view relationships the same way. Like, I think, at least from my group of people that I have interacted with, there is this attitude that it's okay if you don't like somebody because you could just block them or delete them or whatever. Like, you can test it out and see if like you guys connect with each other, and if like if you're not feeling it, you can just get rid of it really easily. And I feel like that is kind of harmful. What's your perspective on that?
I think the problem, I mean, social media has done amazing things. Like, it's made people accessible to each other, whether you're creatives, whether you're networking, whether you're friends, you know, all of those kind of things. But also there's a real dark side to social media. And I think for a lot of people, I mean, I lived most of my teenage years not having social media, not even having the internet, you know. So, and I think that was a beautiful time to have that. Like, I remember talking to one of my friends last week and I said, you know, if you're going to meet someone, a friend, and you tell them, right, I'll meet you at 5 o'clock outside such and such place, there is no doubt in your mind that that person is going to be there at that time. Mm. And if they're not going to be there, they are going to let you know. They're going to phone you up beforehand and say, I'm running late, or I can't do it, or whatever it is. And you know that, but you know, ultimately, you know that person's going to be there. You know, that's how I grew up. That was what we did, you know. And I think there's so many parts of social media where I think a lot of people, especially when it comes to dating apps, you're not even really a person, I think. And you're just a face, you're just a photograph, or you're just you're just someone on the other side of that screen. And I think a lot of people forget that that is actually a real person, and you may not know that person. So I think that's one added part of, you know, of that. I think another part of that is that there's just I think with dating apps now, there's such a disposable culture that's involved with dating apps where, and I don't necessarily think I think partly we all have a responsibility to take in that, but I think a lot of that is, you know, when I think about the younger generation, God, it makes me sound really old, but when I think about people in their 20s, even people in their 30s, I think that they've grown up with this sort of this disposal. So it's just ingrained in them, in that if that person does one thing, even if it means that they didn't text you good night that night, you're throwing them away, you know, because you're like, well, he didn't do that, so it just means I've got 10 other people that I can talk to, you know. And which is a shame, because that person is a person, they're a human being at the end of the day. And so I think the add-on effects of that are that because everybody lives this kind of culture, nobody really cares about each other anymore, you know. Even if you're a stranger, that you're still a human being, and I think there's a big part of that has been taken away. So if you do then if you're lucky enough to get into a relationship with someone, you go into that with this disposable culture that I can just discard you at any time. Even if we are dating, I can discard you at any time. It doesn't matter, because there'll always be someone else that I can talk to, you know. But again, the darker side of dating apps is that I think there's a lot of trauma that comes from that people are not able to address, and that people I guess they don't even realize that there's this trauma involved, you know. So people carry this, it's like a backpack, they carry it on their backs into every time something happens, they carry more and more of this weight each time, you know, and again, it's not necessarily their fault, because they may not even realize that they have it, but they have more and more of this. And you know, and I see so many, even on things like TikTok, you know, and Instagram and things like that, I see so much of bashing, girls bashing guys, guys bashing girls, you know, and I just think, God, just firstly, look at yourself for a second. Are you doing everything if you could be somebody else, would you want to date you? Number one, are you the best person you could be, that you would be a good date? And on top of that, are you doing everything that you know, are you being sensitive to somebody else's trauma? There's so many parts of it, you know. But I think ultimately social media is, for dating specifically, has been awful for you know, like social media has been, that I just feel like the two don't merge together very well. But again, you know, we're in a global pandemic, and this is the only way that people can really interact with each other and things like that. But when I was looking at, because I did a third part of that TikTok where I was asking the ghosters, like, I want to hear your stories, like, why is it that you ghost? And obviously no judgment, like, I just genuinely want to know. There was a lot of people that were like, I don't have any confrontational, I'm very, very non-confrontational. So and then people have put in their own rules as well. So they're like, well, if I'm just talking to someone, I can ghost them. That's not, you know, it's not until I meet them that I will not ghost them. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, are these unwritten rules that I didn't know about? And again, I come from a very old school mindset. So for me, I can kind of look on the outside and see it and go, okay, so that looks like you've created those rules, you know. And I wonder if it's because maybe they don't see them as a person until they actually meet them in person, you know. I don't know. And there are some people that are like, I don't owe them anything. And this is one of my very good friends. I had a conversation with him about this. And I mean, I don't need to tell his story, but he ghosted someone in an awful, awful way. And I said, do you ever feel bad about it? And he was like, I mean, I kind of felt bad because she was upset about it. And I was like, well, of course she was upset about it. You literally, you were with her for 2 years. And I mean, you know, that's a whole nother story. And I said, well, he said, yeah, but I don't owe her anything. And I was like, you do. You owe her 2 years of her life. Yeah. You know, you had keys to her flat. You don't, and you're telling me you don't owe her anything. And so I was trying to really, like, I didn't need to necessarily get my point across, but I really wanted to just hear from him, like, why do you feel like you didn't owe her? You know? And he said, but we were, and there was very toing and froing going on. And I said, do you ever think about the lasting effects of what you did to her? And he's like, yeah, but that's not on me, because I'm the kind of person that when I get into anything, I can't control what someone does and what someone says, what someone feels. And I said, I understand that, but you are if you're going to get into something with someone, you have a direct influence on what that person feels and thinks and does as a result of what your actions are, you know. Anyway, he said, I never really thought about it like that and whatever. He messaged me the next day and he's like, I thought about this a lot, and actually that was really awful what I did. And anyway, if you can help one person, it's all good. But at the same time, it's like, you know, when you hear about these things from the ghosters, they have their own rules. But I think it's like, these are the stories they tell themselves to make themselves feel better, even though I think underneath it, they know that maybe it wasn't the nicest thing to do. You know, and then there's some people that were saying, oh, I was just young and stupid and I just didn't, that was the only way I could really deal with it. But then again, there was other people that were saying, you know, I feared for my life and I was in something very toxic. So this was the only way that I knew that it would be very confrontational if I was to have that conversation with them. And I'm like, well, that's different. If you fear for your safety and if it's for your protection, then that's the one thing that you can do. You know, if you're doing it to hurt someone's feelings, that's a different thing. But if you're doing it for yourself to make sure that you are safe, that's a whole different thing. You know, it was so interesting to really read all the comments and to hear everybody's take on things. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, I think, and just opening up this perspective, which I think has been amazing.
And I too, like, I don't know the statistics, so I don't know if it's more common for guys to ghost girls, but I would assume it seems that way. It seems like it's easier for a guy to ghost than it is for a girl, just because of the emotional, like, I feel, at least for me, like, I feel really bad if I do, like, I feel like I'm like hurting someone's feelings, or like I don't want them to, like, I just overthink it. But I feel like it may be easier for guys to just be like, whatever. So how do you, after going through that, how do you stay confident and not take that personally?
I just have to remind myself that, like, I think in your heart, you know, that if you were a bad girlfriend, then you maybe had a part to play in being ghosted. I don't think it's right for anyone to ever be ghosted, even if it means you get a text to say, I don't think we should see each other anymore. I feel you still owe that person to be respectful enough to do that, because that's a reflection of you. It's not necessarily a reflection of them. It's always going to be a reflection of you. So I think there's two parts in there, in that if you can be the best, if you can put your hand on your heart and say, I'm the best person I can be for whoever it is that I'm going to be getting into, whatever, then you know that you're good. You know that you're, and even if it is something that maybe doesn't mirror what they are, and that's the reason why they ghost you, that's still not on you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think as long as you have the standards that you set for yourself, that's really, really important, that you make sure that you have clear boundaries in terms of what you want and who you are. And even if you don't know what you want, it's still important to say, I don't really know what I want. Like, I think it's important to be really open with your communication, and really know who you are as a person. So I think when it comes, coming out of coming out of being ghosted, I think it's really important to just and I think a lot of, especially women, will go, why is this happening to me? Why did this, what did I do? And I think that's the one thing that actually hurts my heart the most when I see people go through it, is that they look at themselves and go, what did I do? And you have to just remind them and remind yourself, it might not have been anything that you did. But if you can put your hand on your heart and say, I was a good person and I did everything I could to make sure that this was going to be a good relationship, then you kept your part of the bargain. And as long as you remember that you can't control what someone else does or how they feel. I mean, don't get me wrong. I will sometimes sort of go, there'll be the thoughts that creep in, like, why was I not good? Why was I not good enough? Why, all of those kind of things, which are very normal things. We're humans at the end of the day, and we should allow ourselves to feel that way rather than push it aside, because that can cause a bigger issue. So I think we owe ourselves to be the best people, and we owe it to them to be the best people. And it's not fair to take your old trauma into your new relationships, or what potentially could be your new relationships, because that's not fair on them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and ultimately it's not fair on you, because you could be tarnishing that at the very beginning of what could be something potentially beautiful, you know. And I think I'm also one of these people that's I'm always a glass half full person. So I'll always get into something and think, actually, this could be wonderful, you know, even if it's terrible, it potentially could be wonderful. And if that means that I walk through life with rose tinted glasses, that's okay. I'm okay with that, you know. So I guess I'm a hopeless romantic. And I always think positively, and I know ultimately that there is going to be someone who will respect all of those things and understand where I'm coming from, and will appreciate all of the work I've done on myself to give to myself and to them, you know. I think I'm never gonna, it's easy to go, oh, I hate men. That's not necessarily, and again, there's a whole nother part of that, I think, which can be unpacked. But I think ultimately it's about just trying to be the best person you can be, and just remembering that everybody's different. They've all had different lives. They've grown up in different households and with different responsibilities, and everybody has their backpack, if you like. And that's not on you, you know. And I think as long as you can think this isn't on me. This is not me. Respectfully, it's not. So I think that's the only way you can really get through it. This muddle that is internet dating.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciated hearing from you.
No problem. You're so welcome.
All right. Well, take care, and please reach out anytime. I look forward to keeping in touch and seeing posts in the future.
I love it. Thanks. I'm thinking about doing ghost stories on TikTok, where I'm getting people's stories and you know, and seeing how because I'm very interested in people. So it's like, I want to know, okay, what did you do after that? What happened after that? How did you feel? How are you in other relationships? Like all of that kind of thing. So yeah, watch this space. We'll see what happens.
Sure. It's definitely interesting, because even if you're not dating, even if you're just looking for something more casual, I feel like people still get ghosted and try to rationalize it or justify it or whatever. Like, it's no matter, like you said, you even brought up friendship circles ghosting each other. Like, it doesn't have to be dating. Getting ghosted is still hurtful no matter who it is. So
no matter what. This girl got ghosted by her whole friendship group. Could you imagine that happening? Like, that would break my heart into a million pieces. But again, I can't help but think, you know, what did you bring to that friendship that has then made all of those people? It might not be on them, and it may be that maybe she needs to find better friends. But again, it's like, I want to know more about that. I want to understand more. And, you know, what, maybe this whole friendship circle was toxic and you were the one that was not toxic. Or maybe you were the toxic one and these people needed to cut you out for their protection or for their, you know, whatever it is. It's just, there's just so, you know, the more you dig, the more you find. And I think that's what's really exciting. I mean, not that I want to revel in other people's bad stuff, but you know, also I think if it can help someone to unpick their feelings, you know, then it's a good job well done. So
well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care.
It was nice meeting you.
You too. Take care.
You too.